The neon lights of Gangnam blurred into streaks of pink and blue as Belinda stumbled down the sidewalk, her heels dangling from one hand, her other clutching her phone like a lifeline. It was 4 a.m., and Seoul was still alive, taxis honking, street vendors packing up, the city humming with an energy that made her feel invincible. She laughed, too loud, too free, at nothing in particular. Just at the fact that she was here. Away from everything. Away from him. The apartment building rose before her like a silent guardian. She fumbled with the key code, giggling when she got it wrong twice, then finally heard the click. The elevator ride up felt like floating. She was drunk on soju and freedom, and for the first time in months, she felt like herself again. The apartment door swung open. Darkness swallowed her whole. Belinda blinked, her smile fading as her eyes adjusted. The living room was dark except for the city lights filtering through the floor-to-ceiling windows. She expected silence. Maybe Era's soft snoring from down the hall. Instead, she found him. Jaehoon sat in the armchair near the window, still wearing his black suit from earlier, tie loosened but not removed. His legs were crossed, hands steepled beneath his chin, and his eyes, his eyes, were fixed on her with an intensity that made her breath catch. She'd only been in Seoul for 3 days. 3 days, and Era's brother already looked at her like she was a problem he needed to solve. "You're awake," she said stupidly, her voice too bright, too nervous. He didn't move. Didn't blink. His jaw was clenched so tight she could see the muscle ticking beneath his skin. His gaze traveled slowly, deliberately, from her tangled hair to her smudged lipstick, down to her wrinkled dress and bare feet. The silence stretched. Suffocating. Electric. Then he spoke. "Who touched you?" His voice was low. Controlled. Deadly. Belinda froze, her heart slamming against her ribs. The question hung in the air like a blade, and she didn't know whether she was more afraid or angry. There was something in his tone, something possessive and violent and barely restrained, that made her knees weak. "What?" she whispered. Jaehoon stood slowly, unfolding from the chair with a predator's grace. He didn't come closer, but she felt the space between them shrink anyway. "Who touched you?" His eyes were black in the darkness. Consuming. She saw it then, the thing he'd been hiding behind cold stares and clipped words. The thing that terrified her more than anything. He cared. And it was destroying him. If you're ready for a love story that will absolutely wreck you in the best way possible, hit that like button and subscribe right now. Seriously, do it. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. I want to know who's brave enough to take this journey with me. Because trust me, what happens next? You won't see it coming. 5 days earlier. Belinda saw Era before she heard her, a blur of pink coat and flying black hair racing through Incheon Airport's arrival gate like a missile locked on target. Belinda. The impact nearly knocked them both over. Era's arms wrapped around her so tight Belinda couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only laugh and squeeze back just as hard. "I can't believe you're actually here." Era pulled back, her eyes shining. "You're really here. In Seoul. With me." "I'm really here," Belinda confirmed, grinning despite her jet lag. "You begged me for 3 months straight. I had to come before you manifested yourself into my apartment." Era had been her best friend since college, roommates turned sisters, the kind of friendship that survived distance and time zones and Belinda's spectacularly messy breakup 6 months ago. When Era moved back to Seoul after graduation, she'd extended an open invitation, "Come for Christmas. Get away from everything. Heal." Belinda hadn't planned to take her up on it. But then Dante started showing up at her job. Her apartment. Her favorite coffee shop. The breakup had been final for her. For him, it was just an intermission. Seoul became less of a vacation and more of an escape. "Come on," Era said, grabbing her suitcase. "Mom's making enough food to feed the entire neighborhood, and she's so excited to meet you. Fair warning, she's going to try to fatten you up and marry you off within the first week." "Marry me off to who?" Era's smile turned sly. "You'll see." The drive from the airport introduced Belinda to a Seoul she'd only seen in dramas, highways cutting through mountains, high-rises stretching toward winter clouds, streets packed with cars and life and possibility. Era's family lived in Gangnam, in a building so sleek and expensive-looking that Belinda felt underdressed just walking through the lobby. The apartment itself was stunning. Modern and spacious, all clean lines and warm wood, floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing the city below. It smelled like home, like cooking and comfort. "Mom, she's here." A woman emerged from the kitchen, small and elegant with kind eyes and an apron covered in flour. She rushed forward, pulling Belinda into a hug before she could even bow properly. "Belinda, finally. Era talks about you so much, I feel like I already know you." Her English was careful but warm. "You're more beautiful than your photos. Come, come. Are you hungry? Tired?" "Both?" "Both," Belinda admitted, laughing. "I'll make tea." "Era, show her to her room. Let her rest." They moved deeper into the apartment, passing a home office with the door half open. Belinda caught a glimpse of dark wood, leather chairs, and a man's back, broad shoulders in a white dress shirt, phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Korean in a tone that could cut glass. She felt his presence before she saw his face. Era paused at the doorway. "Appa, Belinda's here." The man on the phone went silent. Slowly, he turned. Belinda's breath caught. He was beautiful in a way that felt dangerous. Sharp jaw, high cheekbones, dark eyes that gave away nothing. His black hair was styled back, revealing a face that belonged on magazine covers or in movies, except no camera could capture the intensity that rolled off him in waves. This was Jaehoon, Era's older brother. The one she described as quiet and busy and a little intense. Those words felt criminally inadequate now. His eyes met hers. Held. Something flickered in their depths, surprise, maybe, or recognition, before his expression shuddered completely. He nodded once, a movement so economical it felt like dismissal, then turned back to his phone call without a word. "Sorry," Era whispered, pulling her away. "He's always like that. Work stuff. Don't take it personally." But Belinda couldn't shake the feeling. The way he'd looked at her, like she was a problem he was already calculating how to solve. "He's beautiful. And terrifying. And I already know he hates me." That evening, after unpacking and napping and eating enough of Mrs. Kang's cooking to slip into a food coma, Belinda felt restless. Jet lag had her wired despite her exhaustion. She wandered into the living room, found a Bluetooth speaker, and connected her phone. Music filled the space, something loud and bass-heavy and completely inappropriate for 10 p.m. in a nice apartment. She didn't care. She kicked off her socks and danced barefoot on the hardwood floor, hips swaying, arms above her head, letting the rhythm wash away months of stress and heartbreak and Dante's controlling voice in her head. She didn't see Jaehoon watching from the hallway. He stood in shadow, still wearing his work clothes, tie loosened now. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes tracked every movement, the curve of her waist, the way her body moved without inhibition, free and wild and utterly unconcerned with who might be watching. Something in his chest tightened. Then he turned and walked away without a sound. The war began the next morning. Belinda woke to music, her own playlist, blasting from the living room at a volume that made the windows vibrate. She'd left it connected to the speaker. Oops. She patted out in her pajamas, ready to turn it down, and found the speaker silent. Jaehoon stood beside it, having just disconnected her phone, his expression carved from ice. "Oh," she said. "Sorry. I didn't mean to leave it on." He said nothing, just set her phone on the counter and walked away. Fine. Whatever. An hour later, she reconnected it and turned the music back on, quieter this time, but still present. She was cooking breakfast with Era when the music suddenly cut out again. Jaehoon stood in the doorway of his office, her phone in his hand, having disconnected it remotely somehow. Their eyes met. Challenge accepted. Christmas preparations began with Mrs. Kang's declaration that the apartment needed proper decorating and that Belinda and Jaehoon would be the ones to fetch supplies from Namdaemun Market. "Both of you?" Belinda asked, glancing at Jaehoon, who looked like he'd rather face a firing squad. "Yes, both," Mrs. Kang said cheerfully, already pushing them toward the door. "Jaehoon knows where to go, and Belinda, you have the eye for beautiful things. Perfect team." Era hid her smile behind her coffee cup. The car ride was suffocating. Jaehoon drove his black Mercedes with the same controlled precision he applied to everything: smooth, silent, utterly impersonal. The leather seats smelled expensive. Classical music played so softly it was almost inaudible. Belinda lasted exactly 4 minutes before she couldn't stand it anymore. So, do you always drive like you're escorting a diplomat, or is this special treatment for me? Nothing. Not even a glance. Strong silent type. Got it. Very mysterious. Very brooding. I bet it works on everyone. She turned to look at his profile, that sharp jaw, the way his hands gripped the steering wheel with casual authority. Does it ever get exhausting, though? All that restraint. His jaw tightened. Still nothing. I'll take that as a yes. She grinned, turning to watch Soul slide past her window. You know, you're lucky I'm here. Your mother would have sent Era, and she would have talked even more than me. I'm actually the quiet friend in our duo. Can you imagine? The smallest exhale, almost like a suppressed laugh. Almost. Belinda counted it as a victory. Namdaemun Market was chaos incarnated, a labyrinth of stalls and vendors, shoppers bargaining in rapid Korean, the air thick with the smell of street food and winter spices. Christmas decorations hung everywhere, glittering under string lights. Stay close, Jaehoon said, the first words he'd spoken since they left. His hand hovered near her lower back, not quite touching but definitely guiding. I'm not a child, she said, but didn't move away from his proximity. They collected ornaments, garlands, lights. Mrs. Kang's list was extensive. Belinda got distracted by a stall selling handmade trinkets, drifting away while Jaehoon paid for their purchases. Pretty, yes? Good price for you. The vendor, a middle-aged man with quick eyes, grabbed her wrist when she reached for a glass ornament. You buy, I give discount. His grip was too tight. Too familiar. I'm just looking. Belinda tried to pull back, but he held on, his other hand reaching for her purse. Then Jaehoon was there. He appeared like a shadow given form, his presence so sudden and absolute that Belinda gasped. He didn't touch the vendor. Didn't raise his voice. He simply looked at him, and the temperature dropped 10 degrees. The vendor released her instantly, stumbling backward, his face draining of color. He bowed rapidly, stammering apologies in Korean, before scrambling away into the crowd. Belinda stood frozen, her wrist still tingling where the man had grabbed her. You're welcome, Jaehoon said flatly, already turning away. I didn't need saving. He stopped, turned back slowly. You don't even know what danger looks like. And you do. She crossed her arms, defensive. What are you, some kind of? Yes. His eyes held hers, dark and unflinching. I am exactly what you're thinking. And that man knew it. The market continued its chaos around them, but in that moment, they existed in a bubble of tension so thick Belinda could barely breathe. Why is everyone afraid of you? She asked quietly. Something flickered in his expression. Not quite regret, not quite pain. Because they should be. Should I be? He stepped closer, and her breath caught. You should be terrified of me, Belinda. But for some reason. His eyes traced her face, searching. You're not. The silence stretched. His eyes softened, just slightly, just enough for her to see the man beneath the armor. We should go, he said finally, voice rough. Dinner that evening was a carefully orchestrated ambush. Mrs. Kang seated them side by side at the table, close enough that Belinda's knee pressed against Jaehoon's under the table. Every time she shifted, trying to create distance, she somehow ended up closer instead. His thigh was warm against hers. Solid. Distracting. She could feel him breathing. More kimchi, Belinda? Mrs. Kang asked, smiling innocently while Era smirked into her rice bowl. The tension was unbearable. Every accidental touch sent electricity up Belinda's spine. When Jaehoon reached for the water pitcher at the same time she did, their fingers brushed, and she swore she heard his breath hitch. I'm actually really tired, Belinda announced suddenly, standing so fast her chair scraped. Jet lag. I should sleep. Thank you for dinner. She fled before anyone could protest. She couldn't sleep. At 2 a.m., Belinda found herself wandering the apartment in her pajamas, restless and wired. The door to Jaehoon's study was cracked open, light spilling into the hallway. She shouldn't. She knew she shouldn't. She went in anyway. The office was exactly what she expected, leather and dark wood, expensive and masculine. But it was the desk that drew her attention. Photos scattered across the surface. Documents in Korean with official-looking seals. A tablet displaying security camera feeds of the building entrance. You shouldn't be in here. Belinda spun around, heart slamming into her throat. Jaehoon stood in the doorway, still dressed despite the hour, his expression unreadable but his eyes burning. Why? She challenged, pulse racing. What are you hiding? He stepped inside, closing the door behind him with a quiet click. Each step toward her was deliberate, predatory. Things you're better off not knowing. Maybe I want to know. Another step. Belinda. Maybe I'm tired of everyone deciding what's good for me. He was close now. Too close. She could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes, the barely controlled tension in his jaw. His cologne, something expensive and understated, wrapped around her like a physical thing. You don't understand what you're asking, he said, voice dropping to barely above a whisper. Then explain it to me. His hand lifted slowly, giving her time to move away, and brushed a strand of hair from her face. His thumb grazed her cheekbone, and she stopped breathing. I can't, he said, and she heard real pain there. Not yet. They stood there, suspended in that moment, his hand still cradling her face, her heart thundering so loud he must have been able to hear it. His eyes dropped to her mouth, and she saw him fighting himself, fighting the urge to close that final distance. Belinda. Era's voice called from the hallway. You awake? I heard something. Jaehoon stepped back like he'd been burned. His jaw clenched, his expression shuddering completely. Without another word, he turned and walked out of the study, brushing past Era without explanation. Belinda stood there alone, touching her cheek where his hand had been, and realized something terrifying. This wasn't just attraction. This was dangerous. The next 3 days were exquisite torture. Belinda and Jaehoon circled each other like magnets with the wrong polarity, constantly repelling yet unable to move away. They argued about everything. The thermostat. The appropriate volume for Christmas music. Whether she needed a coat when going to the convenience store. It's below freezing, he said, blocking the door. It's 2 blocks away. Where? The coat. You're not my father. His eyes darkened. I'm very aware of that. The air between them crackled. Belinda grabbed the coat. But their arguments felt like foreplay, an excuse to be in each other's orbit, to trade words when they couldn't trade touches. Mrs. Kang and Era watched with barely concealed delight, orchestrating increasingly transparent situations. Suddenly Belinda and Jaehoon needed to pick up groceries together. Sit together during movie night. Test Christmas lights in close quarters. Your family is subtle as a sledgehammer, Belinda muttered one afternoon as Mrs. Kang literally pushed them into the elevator together. They've given up subtlety, Jaehoon replied, and was that amusement in his voice? She started noticing things. Small things that felt monumental. How Jaehoon always made sure she ate, wordlessly placing extra banchan within her reach at meals. How his eyes tracked her across rooms when he thought she wasn't looking. How men in dark suits started appearing around the building, standing outside, sitting in parked cars always when she was alone. Who are they? She asked Era one day, gesturing at the man stationed near their building entrance. Era glanced over, unconcerned. Appa's, security. Don't worry about it. But Belinda did worry, because she was starting to understand exactly what Jaehoon was. The confrontation happened on a Tuesday evening. Belinda found Jaehoon in the kitchen, making tea with methodical precision. Why do you care what I do? She demanded, tired of dancing around it. He didn't look up from pouring water. I don't. Liar. She moved closer, invading his carefully controlled space. You watch me constantly. You send your men to guard me. You argue with me about coats and curfews like you have some right to. I don't care, he repeated, but his knuckles were white around the teapot. Then why? Her phone buzzed. Once. Twice. 3 times in rapid succession with messages from Dante. Belinda glanced at the screen and felt ice slide down her spine. Found you. Soul, really? Running away doesn't solve anything, babe. We need to talk. I'm coming to fix this. Her hands started shaking. Jaehoon saw her face and moved before she could blink. What is it? Nothing. It's... He took the phone from her trembling hands, his expression transforming as he read the messages. The careful control shattered. His jaw clenched so hard she heard his teeth grind. His knuckles went white around her phone. "Who is this?" His voice was deadly quiet. "My ex." "It's nothing, he's just..." "He tracked your location." Jaehoon scrolled through the messages, his breathing harsh. "He's threatening you." "He's not threatening, he's just..." "Running doesn't solve anything." "Coming to fix this." Jaehoon's eyes snapped to hers, blazing with something dark and violent. "That's a threat, Belinda. I can handle." "He won't touch you again." It wasn't a promise. It was a threat. A guarantee. Belinda should have been afraid of the cold fury in his voice, the absolute certainty that he would do whatever was necessary. Instead, she felt safe. Jaehoon. He was already on his phone, speaking rapid Korean, issuing orders. When he finished, he turned back to her, and his hand, so gentle despite the violence in his eyes, cupped her face. "No one hurts you," he said simply. "Not while I'm breathing." That night, unable to sleep, Belinda found Jaehoon in the kitchen at 3 a.m. He stood at the window, shirtless, a glass of whiskey in hand. She saw them then, the scars. A jagged line across his ribs. Another on his shoulder blade. "Can't sleep either?" she asked softly. He turned, saw her in her sleep shorts and tank top, and something in his expression cracked. "You shouldn't be out here." "Why not?" "Because I'm trying very hard to stay away from you, and you're not making it easy." Belinda moved closer, drawn by his honesty. "Maybe I don't want you to stay away." His hand tightened on the glass. "You don't know what you're saying." "Tell me about them," she said, gesturing at his scars. "Tell me about the weight you carry. Let me understand." For a long moment, he said nothing. "Then, I inherited responsibilities I didn't choose. My father's world. His debts. His wars." His voice was rough, raw. "Everything I do, every decision I make, people live or die by it. There's no room for softness. For wanting things I can't protect." "You don't have to carry everything alone," she whispered, reaching out to touch his hand. The moment their skin connected, electricity sparked. His eyes dropped to where her fingers rested against his, and she felt his entire body go rigid. Then his phone shattered the moment, harsh, insistent ringing. Jaehoon pulled away, his expression shuddering. "I have to take this." He left her standing there, aching with unfinished connection. "I need to get out," Belinda told Era the next evening. "Just for a few hours. Dance. Feel alive. Please." Era grinned. "Club Octagon. Best in Gangnam." "I'm so in." They were getting ready when Jaehoon appeared in the doorway. "Where are you going?" "Out," Belinda said, applying lipstick with defiant precision. "To have fun. Remember fun? Not tonight." "Excuse me." She spun to face him. "You don't get to. It's not safe. Your men are everywhere. What could possibly happen?" His jaw clenched. "Belinda." "No." She grabbed her purse. "I came to Seoul to feel free. And I'm going." She pushed past him, ignoring the tension radiating from his body, ignoring Era's worried glance. At the club, Belinda lost herself. In the music, the lights, the press of bodies. She danced until sweat slicked her skin, drank soju until the world blurred soft at the edges. Her phone died somewhere around 2 a.m. She didn't know that Jaehoon called 17 times. She didn't know that panic, real, visceral panic, had him pacing the apartment, his control fracturing with each unanswered call. She didn't know that he was imagining every terrible thing that could happen to her. Until she stumbled home at 4 a.m. and found him waiting in the dark. "Who touched you?" The question hung in the darkness like a guillotine blade, and Belinda felt her drunken euphoria evaporate in an instant. Jaehoon's voice shook, actually shook, with barely controlled rage, and it ignited something defensive and fierce inside her. "What does it matter to you?" she shot back, her words slurring slightly. He stood in one fluid motion, closing the distance between them in 3 strides. His hand wrapped around her wrist, not hard, but firm, inescapable. "Answer me." The touch burned. Everything in her screamed danger, but she couldn't tell if she wanted to run toward it or away from it. "Let go of me." "Belinda." She slapped him. The crack echoed through the apartment. Her palm stung. Jaehoon's head turned with the impact, and for one terrible moment, everything went silent. Then he moved. His fist slammed into the wall beside her head with such force that plaster cracked and rained down like snow. Belinda flinched, but he never touched her, never even came close, yet the violence was so palpable she could taste it. "You don't own me," she screamed, tears streaming down her face now, all the anger and hurt and confusion of the past week erupting. "I'm not your responsibility. I'm not your anything. You think I want this?" His voice broke, raw and jagged. He pressed his forehead against the wall above her, his breathing ragged. "You think I want to feel this way about you? You think I chose to care whether some stranger put their hands on you? Whether you're safe? Whether you're thinking about me the way I can't stop thinking about you?" Belinda's breath hitched. "Then don't. I didn't come here to be controlled by another man. I didn't escape Dante just to. I've never been with anyone." The words tumbled out in a rush, desperate and mortifying. Jaehoon went absolutely still. "What?" "Never." Her voice cracked. "No one touched me tonight because no one ever has. I've never." She pressed her hands to her face, humiliated. "So whatever you think I did, whatever you're imagining, you're wrong." The silence was deafening. When she finally looked at him, the anger had drained from his face, replaced by something that looked like horror. Like pain. "You're—" He couldn't finish the sentence. His eyes searched hers, desperate. "Belinda." His knees hit the floor. The most dangerous man she'd ever met knelt before her, pressing his forehead against her stomach, his hands trembling as they gripped her hips, not possessive, but pleading. "I'm sorry." His voice was wrecked. "I'm so sorry. I thought. Belinda's hands shook as she touched his hair. It was softer than she'd imagined. He made a sound, broken, relieved, and his arms wrapped around her waist, holding her like she was the only thing anchoring him to earth. "I can't stay away from you anymore," he whispered against her stomach. "I've tried. I can't." He looked up, and the raw need in his eyes stole her breath. Slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, he rose to his feet. His hand cupped her face with devastating gentleness. "Tell me to stop," he breathed, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. She couldn't. Wouldn't. The kiss destroyed them both. It was desperate and consuming, years of loneliness and hunger pouring out in the press of lips and the tangle of tongues. His hands were in her hair, hers clutching his shirt, and nothing had ever felt this right, this inevitable. Belinda's back hit the wall, gentler this time, and Jaehoon kissed her like she was oxygen, and he was drowning. She tasted whiskey on his tongue, felt the tremor in his hands as they mapped her curves, heard the groan that rumbled from his chest when she pressed closer. Then he froze. He pulled back abruptly, breathing hard, his pupils blown wide. "No." "What?" "Not like this." His voice was rough, pained. "You've been drinking. You don't know what this means. What I am. What being with me would cost you." "Jaehoon." "Not like this," he repeated firmly. Then, before she could protest, he swept her into his arms, carrying her down the hallway. Belinda expected her guest room. Instead, he took her to his bedroom, all dark walls and expensive sheets and the faint scent of his cologne. He laid her down with heartbreaking gentleness, removing her shoes, pulling a blanket over her. "Sleep," he said softly, brushing hair from her face. "Stay," she whispered, catching his wrist. Something in his expression cracked. He grabbed a pillow and settled on the floor beside the bed, his hand finding hers in the darkness. "I'm not going anywhere," he promised. Belinda fell asleep to the sound of his breathing, their fingers intertwined, and woke to morning light streaming through unfamiliar windows. She was alone. A note rested on the pillow beside her, written in precise handwriting. "We need to talk. Jay." They sat across from each other in his study, the morning light harsh and unforgiving. Jaehoon looked like he hadn't slept, rumpled shirt, shadows under his eyes, jaw tight with tension. "I need you to understand what I am," he said without preamble. "My family, my father, built an empire on blood and secrets. When he died, I inherited everything. The businesses, legitimate and otherwise. The alliances. The enemies." He paused. "The violence." Belinda's heart hammered, but she kept her voice steady. "I already knew. I'm not stupid. Then you know why this," he gestured between them, "can't happen. My world will destroy you. My enemies will use you against me. Every moment you're with me, you're in danger. I'm not asking for normal. She leaned forward, desperate. I'm asking for you. You don't know what you're asking. Then let me decide. Stop treating me like I'm too fragile to. You are. The words exploded from him. You're innocent and good, and you deserve someone who can give you safety. Normalcy. I can give you nothing but darkness and fear and looking over your shoulder for the rest of your life. That's not your decision to make. It is when it's your life on the line. The argument went in circles, neither willing to yield, until Belinda finally left, her heart breaking with every step. What she didn't know, Dante had already landed in Seoul. What Jaehoon didn't tell her, surveillance photos had appeared on his desk that morning. Belinda laughing in the market. Belinda entering the apartment. Belinda dancing at the club. His enemies were watching. The message was clear, we know about her. Jaehoon made the decision that would destroy them both. He became ice. When Belinda tried to talk to him, he walked away. At meals, he was silent, cold, unreachable. He worked late, came home later, avoided every space she occupied. 3 days before Christmas, she confronted him in the hallway. What happened? After that night, That night was a mistake, he said flatly, his eyes empty. Go home, Belinda. This was all a mistake. The words were a blade between her ribs. You're just like him, she whispered, tears streaming. Just another man who thinks he knows what's best for me. Who makes decisions about my life without asking? She watched something die in his eyes, but he didn't take it back. Belinda moved to Era's room. Refused to speak to him. The apartment filled with a grief so thick it choked. Christmas Eve arrived with forced cheer. Mrs. Kong cooked. Era decorated. Jaehoon disappeared into his study. Belinda helped with hollow smiles, her heart shattered. You're an idiot, Era hissed at her brother when she found him alone. She loves you. And you're throwing it away. Love isn't enough to keep her safe. Love is the only thing worth risking everything for, you coward. That night, Belinda needed air. She walked to the convenience store, needing distance, needing to breathe. She didn't see the car waiting. Belinda. She spun. Dante stood there, looking disheveled and manic, his eyes too bright. Finally. We need to talk. How did you? You belong with me. He grabbed her arm, pulling her toward a car. I'm taking you home. Away from whatever mistake you're making here. Let go. She fought, screaming, terror spiking through her. Then Jaehoon was there. He appeared like vengeance incarnate, ripping Dante away from her with brutal efficiency. The fight was controlled violence, precise strikes, cold fury, Dante crumpling under the assault. Touch her again, Jaehoon said, his voice death itself, and I'll kill you. Belinda screamed when he didn't stop, when his fists kept connecting. Jaehoon, please. Stop. He froze. Blood on his knuckles. Murder in his eyes. Police arrived. Jaehoon's connections ensured Dante was arrested, deported, restraining order filed. But when it was over, when Belinda stood shaking in the cold, watching them take Dante away, she felt only emptiness. You followed me, she said quietly. I never stopped watching. His voice was hollow. Even when I pushed you away. I can't do this. Fresh tears fell. I can't love someone who won't let me choose my own risks. Who makes decisions for me? I can't, Jaehoon. She walked away. He let her go, standing alone in the snow, watching the only good thing in his dark world disappear. Christmas morning arrived with snow falling soft and silent outside the windows. Inside, Belinda folded clothes into her suitcase with mechanical precision, her flight confirmation pulled up on her phone. 6:47 p.m. departure. Back to reality. Back to a life that suddenly felt impossibly empty. She didn't hear Mrs. Kang enter until the older woman's hand touched her shoulder. Oh, sweetheart, Mrs. Kang said softly, seeing Belinda's tear-stained face. She sat on the bed, pulling Belinda down beside her. Talk to me. I can't stay, Belinda whispered. It hurts too much. Mrs. Kang was quiet for a long moment. Then, can I tell you a secret? We've been trying to push you two together since you arrived. The errands, the seating arrangements, all of it. She smiled sadly. We see how he looks at you. Like your sunlight, and he's spent his whole life in darkness. He's never looked at anyone that way. Then why did he push me away? The words broke on a sob. Because he loves you. Mrs. Kong took her hand. 3 days ago, Jae-hoon dissolved alliances his father spent 20 years building. He made enemies of men who used to call him brother. He risked everything, his organization, his safety, his power, to eliminate every threat that might touch you. Belinda's breath caught. What? He's been working night and day to make his world safe enough for you to exist in it. But he never told you because he didn't want you to stay out of gratitude. He wanted you to choose him freely or not at all. The door opened. Era appeared, her eyes red from crying. Uni, you can't leave. Not like this. Era. He's been in love with you since the first night you danced in our living room. Era sat on Belinda's other side. I've never seen my brother lose control. Never. But you? You unravel him just by existing. He's terrified not of his enemies, not of violence, but of failing you. Of not being enough. Of his darkness consuming your light. Belinda pressed her hands to her face, the pieces finally clicking into place. He wasn't trying to control me. No, Mrs. Kung said gently. He was trying to free you from his world, even though it was destroying him. But I don't want freedom without him, Belinda whispered. Then louder, with sudden clarity, I don't want freedom without him. She was moving before conscious thought caught up, throwing open her suitcase, grabbing her phone, her coat forgotten as she ran for the door. Belinda, you're in pajamas. Era called. I don't care. The elevator took forever. The lobby was a blur. Snow hit her face the moment she burst onto the street, soaking through her thin sleep clothes instantly. She didn't feel it. Didn't feel anything except the desperate need to reach him. His office was downtown, a sleek high-rise she'd seen in photos on his desk. She hailed a taxi with shaking hands, barely coherent as she gave the address. 20 minutes that felt like hours. The building's lobby was empty except for security. They took one look at her wild-eyed, in Christmas pajamas, covered in snow, and reached for their radios. I need to see Kong Jae-hoon, she gasped. Please. It's urgent. One guard spoke rapid Korean into his radio. A pause. Then, to her shock, he gestured toward the elevators. 40th floor. He's expecting you. He knew I was coming. The elevator ascended, her heart hammering harder with each floor. When the doors opened, she found herself in an empty corridor, glass walls, modern art, the kind of wealth that whispered rather than shouted. Only one office door stood open. Belinda ran. Jae-hoon stood with his back to the door, staring at a wall of monitors. Security footage played across them, the market, the apartment, the club. And there, frozen on the center screen, footage from last night. Her walking to the convenience store. Dante grabbing her. The fight. He was watching himself save her over and over, unable to look away. You don't get to decide what's too dangerous for me, Belinda said, breathless. Jae-hoon spun around, his eyes widening at the sight of her soaked, shivering, defiant. Your flight. I canceled it. She moved forward, dripping snow onto expensive carpet. I'm not leaving. Not unless you look me in the eye and tell me you don't love me. His jaw worked. His hands clenched at his sides. For a moment, she thought he might actually do it, might actually lie to save her. Then his control shattered. I can't. The words ripped from him. I can't tell you that. I can't even pretend anymore. The distance between them evaporated. He crossed her in 3 strides, his hands cupping her face with devastating tenderness, and Belinda saw everything she needed in his eyes. I love you, he said, voice breaking. I've loved you since you invaded my life and refused to follow a single rule. Since you danced barefoot in my living room and argued with me about thermostats and looked at me like I wasn't a monster. I love you so much it terrifies me. Belinda's tears mixed with melting snow. Then stop pushing me away. I can't promise you safety. I can't promise you normal. I don't want normal. She pressed closer, her hands fisting in his shirt. I want you. All of you. The danger, the darkness, the empire, the violence. I want the man who kneels for me, who punches walls instead of me, who sleeps on floors to protect me from himself. I want you, Jae-hoon. Choose me back. His forehead dropped to hers. You're sure? Once you're mine, I won't let you go. I can't. Then don't. The kiss was inevitable, deep and claiming, and full of desperate relief. His hands were in her wet hair, hers clutching his shoulders, and nothing had ever felt more like coming home. "I'm not going anywhere," she whispered against his mouth. "Then I'll spend every day proving I'm worth staying for," he promised and kissed her again. "Your flight leaves in 4 hours," Jae-hoon said against her lips, though his arms tightened around her waist, contradicting his words. "I already canceled it." Belinda pulled back just enough to see his face. "I emailed my boss. I'm taking extended leave." Something fierce and possessive flared in his eyes. "How extended?" "However long it takes to figure out if this us can work." "It will work." He said it with absolute certainty, like he could bend reality through sheer force of will. "I'll make it work." "We'll make it work," she corrected, and kissed him again. The kiss deepened, shifting from relieved to heated. Jae-hoon's hands mapped her curves through the thin, damp pajamas, and Belinda gasped when his fingers found bare skin at her waist. "You're freezing," he murmured, pulling back with visible effort. "And soaked." "I need to." "I don't care." She pulled him back down. "I don't care about anything except this. You. Now." His control wavered. She saw it in the way his pupils dilated, the way his breathing roughened. "Belinda." "I'm sure," she said firmly. "I've never been more sure of anything." "This isn't. We shouldn't. Not here. Not in my office." "Then where?" She challenged, emboldened by desire and the certainty that he wanted this as badly as she did. "Because I'm not waiting anymore. I've waited my whole life for something that feels this right." The last thread of his restraint snapped. He lifted her effortlessly, her legs wrapping around his waist as he carried her to the leather sofa by the window. The city sprawled below them, Christmas lights twinkling against snow, but neither of them noticed. There was only this, the desperate press of bodies, the tangle of limbs, clothing discarded with shaking hands. "Tell me if I hurt you," Jae-hoon breathed against her neck, his hands trembling as they explored. "Tell me if you want to stop." "Don't stop," she gasped. "Please don't stop." He didn't. He worshipped her body like it was sacred, every curve, every soft sound she made, every shiver of pleasure drawing groans from deep in his chest. He was infinitely gentle despite the violence she knew lived in his hands, treating her innocence like the precious gift it was. When he finally joined them together, Belinda cried out not from pain, but from the overwhelming rightness of it. From feeling utterly claimed and completely safe at the same time. "Mine," Jae-hoon groaned against her throat, his hips moving with controlled precision. "Say it. Say you're mine." "Yours," she gasped, nails digging into his shoulders. "Only yours." He made love to her like he was memorizing her, learning what made her arch, what made her moan, what made her fall apart in his arms. And when she shattered, he followed her over the edge, her name a prayer on his lips. Afterward, they lay tangled together on the sofa, the city lights painting patterns across their skin. Jae-hoon traced lazy circles on her hip, his expression softer than she'd ever seen it. "I love you," he said simply. "I'm going to say it so much you'll get sick of hearing it." "Never," she promised, pressing a kiss to his chest. Family dinner that evening was a barely contained celebration. Mrs. Kang had outdone herself. The table groaned under traditional Christmas dishes and Korean favorites. Era bounced in her seat, grinning like she'd won the lottery. And when Belinda and Jae-hoon arrived together, his hand firmly clasping hers, Mrs. Kang's eyes filled with happy tears. "Finally," she said simply, pulling them both into a hug. At the table, Jae-hoon held Belinda's hand above the tablecloth, public, possessive, unashamed. Every touch was deliberate. Every glance was claiming. His family watched with knowing smiles, not even pretending subtlety anymore. "Your family knew all along, didn't they?" Belinda whispered, leaning close. Jae-hoon's lips curved in a rare, genuine smile. "My mother's been planning our wedding since you arrived." "Wedding?" Her heart stuttered. "Don't look so terrified." He brought her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles. "I'll wait until you're ready. But make no mistake, Belinda, you're mine now. Forever isn't long enough." Across the table, Era squealed quietly into her napkin while Mrs. Kang smiled into her wine glass, utterly satisfied with her matchmaking success. For the first time since arriving in Seoul, Belinda felt completely at peace. This was home. Not the apartment, not the city, But here, beside this dangerous, beautiful man who loved her with an intensity that should have terrified her but instead made her feel invincible, she squeezed his hand. Forever sounds perfect. His smile could have lit the entire city. Weeks bled into months, and Belinda's temporary visit became permanent. She enrolled in Korean language classes, stumbling through pronunciation while Jaehoon corrected her with amused patience. His world, once terrifying and impenetrable, opened to her slowly, and she surprised everyone, including herself, by thriving in it. She wasn't a damsel waiting to be protected. She became his partner, sitting in meetings, offering insights that made hardened men blink in surprise, navigating politics with intelligence and fearlessness that earned grudging respect. "She's mine," Jaehoon announced at a formal gathering, his hand possessive at her waist. "Anyone who threatens her answers to me." The message was clear. Belinda was untouchable. New Year's Eve found them on the apartment balcony, snow drifting down like wishes, the city a carpet of lights below. Belinda leaned against the railing, Jaehoon's arms wrapped around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. "I never believed in New Year's resolutions until you," he murmured against her ear. She turned in his arms, smiling. "What's your resolution?" "To deserve you every single day." Tears pricked her eyes. She cupped his face, kissing him softly. "You already do." Valentine's Day arrived with soul blanketed in fresh snow. Jaehoon took her to the Han River, where the city lights reflected on ice like scattered diamonds. When he dropped to one knee, pulling out a ring that somehow captured her perfectly, bold and beautiful and utterly unique, Belinda's heart stopped. "Marry me," he said, voice steady despite the emotion burning in his eyes. "Not because I need to possess you, but because I can't imagine a life where you're not choosing me every day. Choose me, Belinda. Forever." "Yes." The word came out choked with tears and laughter. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." The ring slid onto her finger like it had always belonged there. Their wedding was intimate, family only, in a garden dusted with spring blossoms. Era served as maid of honor, crying so hard she could barely hold the bouquet. Mrs. Kang beamed with pride. And when Jaehoon saw Belinda walking toward him in white, his composure finally cracked, tears sliding down his cheeks. "You taught me that love isn't about control," he said during his vows, voice thick with emotion. "It's about trust. And I trust you with every broken piece of me. You made me believe I could be more than my father's shadow. You made me want to be worthy." Belinda's hands trembled as she spoke hers. "You taught me I didn't need saving. I needed someone brave enough to let me be dangerous too. To let me choose my own risks. To love me without caging me. You're my freedom and my home, and I choose you. Today and always." They kissed as husband and wife, sealing promises made in darkness and kept in light. The reception ended with them dancing in the garden as evening snow began to fall. Belinda kicked off her heels, laughing as she danced barefoot just like that first night, but this time, Jaehoon joined her, his smile genuine and unguarded, the dangerous man finally at peace. As the screen fades, words appear. Some love stories don't fix you. They find you. And that's enough. The end. If this story wrecked you in the best way possible, smash that like button and subscribe for more emotional roller coasters. Now I need to know, would you have fought for a love like this, or would you have walked away when it got too dangerous? Drop your answer in the comments below. Let's talk about it.